Hey guys, I got a really cool build to show, and this may actually become one of my favorite minion builds of all times. Especially because I just like cursing enemies and crowd controlling enemies. And this is an occultist, and focusing on curses. Using Doedre skin to curse well, all the enemies and apply 5 curses. The build started with the idea of having like immortal minions, only immortal minions, Vorana's March Boots and Arbalist, and then the Essence Crafted Staff for Spectral Spirits, which are also immortal like Raging Spirits, but pure physical, and you only have 3 of them permanent. The Occultist, because explosions just help with the release speed immensely. It's just insane how much quality of life it adds with the explosions. However, I really liked the build, but it was struggling with single target and just not viable. Some bosses I could hardly kill because just kill me before I can finish them off. And I guess many of you want to just know my opinion about Vorana's March Boots and those Arbalist minions. I'm gonna go straight to the point. They are very bad. They are very bad for single target for damage. But I think they are very good for debuffing enemies. And I made a video, actually 2 videos. They are probably the best on non-minion builds if you want to apply multiple debuffs reliably kind of, and without you clicking buttons. Because those arbalists are immortal, but their damage is just so bad. Not having sockets, not being able to support them with any support gems is just massive drawback. If you're thinking of doing Vorana's March Boots as a pure minion build for damage, just don't. No, you're not gonna enjoy it. Later on, I replaced the Essence Crafted Staff, replaced the Vorana's March Boost into different Vorana's March to apply more debuffs rather than for damage. Added skeletons and again like 5 times more damage. How about that? So now this build actually has the damage and has everything I like. Not getting hit because I crowd control enemies so much they literally cannot move. I think I have not died a single time to excavation monsters because they spawn, all of them get frozen, sometimes they move a bit, but all of them get frozen, something dies, everything explodes, and you are safe. The same story could be said for mapping as well for the most part. There are cases where enemies just shoot you from like 2 screens away with a bunch of projectiles, or if you are surrounded by a bunch of enemies shooting projectiles from all directions, and you cannot tag enemies fast enough with multiple curses with the Doedre's effigy, then it becomes sketchy. And this build does not have a lot of HP, but it does have a lot of tankiness against cursed enemies. I believe I have over 65,000 effective HP against elemental hits and almost 40,000 against physical. So it is pretty tanky, it does have dodge. Enemies also get frozen because this isn't a crit build, but the frostbite has so much curse effect that enemies have like almost 60% chance to freeze enemies with normal hits. And if we are hitting hard enough, we can also freeze bosses. However, this build is probably not ideal for bossing, although it can do bosses. However, bosses, as you know, have less curse effect. Like endgame bosses have, I believe, 60% less curse effect, so it doesn't matter how many increased curse effect you get, they're still gonna be very weak against bosses. But still, that does not mean that this build cannot do bosses. Like I said, skeletons have a lot more damage than my initial build had, and they have actually we can take a look at path of building. So each skeleton, and I have 10 skeletons, each skeleton does 500,000 DPS against enemies on low life. This is because I am using punishment curse, which does give a lot more damage when enemies are on low life. So they don't lose all that much damage when enemies are not on low life. Once enemies are on low life, you are dealing like 500. Actually, this is not all. You're dealing like 5 million DPS with skeletons. And I don't have any minion tankiness at all. The only reason why they are surviving is because of Blessed Rebirth. And I'm also using Summon Karen Golem, which adds a lot of damage for this. Okay, not that much it seems. I kind of imagine that it was adding more. It's only adding like 30k DPS per minion. You can squeeze in a lot more damage on this build. This is level 89, I can still get 2 more jewels, still upgrade my jewels to improve them. Some of them were using flare damage, which isn't as good as just increased minion damage jewels. I would be able to replace the jewels and get more damage. However, this build uses only 2 rare items, and the rest are unique items, so it was difficult to cap resistances and I could not get that much life, but like I said, I don't need much life if I don't get hit. So I'm gonna go over my items, skills, links, support gems. As always, include path of building import code in the description. But one thing I want to mention before I move on. So tomorrow I'm actually gonna be in the Fated Connection podcast, and we're gonna talk about builds in general and our opinions about the league. So if you want to hang out, I'm gonna leave all the links to podcast and the timer in the pinned comment below this video. So items. Doedre skin summons Doedre's effigy, which is like a totem, but it's not benefiting from totem things. And it casts all the curses inside the body armor. And it ignores the maximum curse limit. The cool thing is that you can actually now apply an MTX to the Doedre's effigy, to the Doedre skin. And those Doedre's effigy will have different effects. Which is kind of cool if you got some cool aura effects. I personally like the dark magic aura because I'm colorblind and the blue is easier to see for me. But by default, you can actually see multiple circles around the effigy. Each circle represents a curse aura. So yeah, it's pretty cool that it can have an MTX now. Now other things, inside Doedre's effigy I have 3 of the curses linked with enhance. I didn't really bother linking 5 linking, you don't need a 6 link. The main curses are Enfeeble, Elemental Weakness, and Temporal Chain. These gain the most out of quality. Enhanced level 3 is also pretty cheap, like 50 KS, maybe less. Temporal Chain slows down enemies. Elemental Weakness quality also lowers enemy resistance even more. And Enfeeble just gives you more tankiness. Also I have Punishment Curse, which has like a 2-part thing. One thing is the cursed enemy take increased damage when they are on low life. But also if they hit you while they are cursed by it, they will get a debuff which is gonna apply a debilitated debuff on them, and that is gonna cause them to have 20% less movement speed and deal 10% less damage. And Frostbite doesn't need quality because it just increased duration. Freezes on cursed enemies have increased duration. I didn't really value that much, but now that I think about it, maybe I would be able to freeze bigger bosses more reliably. However, endgame bosses cannot be fully frozen, so it doesn't matter. Belt for minions. Darkness Enthroned is always the best option, and I tried to get some minion damage with life, and resistances was also very important for me because I'm barely capping my resistances right now. 80, 83 and 92 right now. Next, since I am using so many curses and I want to maximize the curse effect, Replica Doedre's Damning. This gives up to 35% increase effect of your curses, but you can quality with caster catalyst to increase that by another 20%. So this got 39 curse effect, this one got 39. However, sad part is that they don't really have anything else good, just barely a couple all resistances. The negative is that you can apply one fewer curse, which doesn't matter for Doedre's skin because it ignores the curse limit. By default I could cast 2 curses because this is Occultist, so I'm getting +1 curse. If I use 2 of these, I cannot cast any curse. So only Doedre's effigy ignoring curse limit would be able to cast. So if you want to use like Assassin's Mark, Poacher's Mark, stuff like that, you would only be able to use one of Replica's Doedre's Damning, unless you get an extra curse somewhere, either on the tree or on an amulet somewhere else. Then Triad Grip is a must if you want to convert fully into cold. The sad thing is that I also had not enough sockets, because using Vorana's March, no sockets. Then Doedre's skin is taking all the curses. Then Triad Grip can only have green sockets to convert into cold. So one good place where I can use other support gems is the helmet. I tried getting +2, +3 minion helmet with like minion damage or minion life, and put Karen Golem inside it because Karen Golem is not immortal. But now I'm thinking maybe Karen Golem is not even needed. It doesn't add all that much damage and it's kind of annoying when it keeps dying. But Karen Golem also is linked with Feeding Frenzy, which does give a buff to me, which increases all the minion damage and speed, I believe. And then I'm also using Ball Lighting. Anomalous just because cast speed, but I don't need more cast speed right now. Ball Lighting is just to trigger elemental equilibrium, nothing else basically. And Skitter Bots for the damage. And also chilling enemies, slowing them down even more before my minions start hitting them and slowing them down. So it works like a debuff on enemies as well. Now the staff, actually Cane of Kulemak is pretty good for minions. I have actually a couple of them. So Cane of Kulemak, it can be a couple options. You may have 1 minion damage and minion attack speed. If you get +3 socketed support gems, minion damage and minion attack speed, that is like 20 exalt staff, if you can even find one on the market. So don't try to get 3 good stats, I guess. Just a big minion damage and minion attack speed is all you need basically. And turns out it is kind of hard to outdamage the staff because you are getting so much attack speed and so much damage on a single staff that there aren't that many things that can outdamage it. And skeletons do not have they only have a spell tag and minion tag, and staff I believe don't roll minion plus minion, so you can only roll +2 to spell skill gems, and that's not as good as just big minion damage and big minion attack speed. And the stuff like this is like 50 KS. Of course you would have to link it as well, but I was playing even on a 5 link and it was working just fine. And also on a 5 link you're gonna have less mana issues. I actually had to take some mana nodes from the tree to solve the mana issues. By the way, the helmet, you don't necessarily need the helmet enchantment for this, but you kind of want a bone helmet. It doesn't even need to be Elder's Bone Helmet. Just get the Bone Helmet for minion damage and then try to get as much resistance as possible, so you don't need to waste damage on jewels by getting resistances instead of damage. That's what I mean. The amulet, just resistances, big life, and then Anointed Death Attunement for an extra skeleton. So because I'm using +3 circuit support gems and level 3 empower, only level 3, summon skeletons are actually level 26 with this. And that means I can summon 4 skeletons at the same time, and it also increases the maximum skeletons I can have. Like level 21 quality 20 can only have 7 skeletons, but I believe level 25 or 26 has 8 maximum. And I took one from the passive skill tree and anointed another one, so I can have 10 skeletons at the same time. If you don't go for +3 circuit support gems, you're only gonna have 9 skeletons. Figure out whichever you prefer. The +3 is gonna be a bit more expensive, and you're gonna have to get level 3 empower, which is like 50 KS compared to this stuff which does not require empower, but you will have a bit more damage and more higher damage potential because you can use level 4 empower. Now the summon skeletons are linked to elemental damage of attacks, empower level 3, minion damage, anomalous predator mark. Anomalous adds a debuff to enemies for minus all resistances. Which actually is not showed up in Path of Building. And then multi-strike for the most damage, but if you want better freezes, just use like melee physical damage, which is then going to be converted into cold, so it's fine. For the auras, I got also Hatred in the gloves. Val Haste, I actually always forget to use Val Haste, so I even disabled it in Path of Building, but technically you could have more damage if you also enable Val Haste. Unfortunately, I don't have enough dex, so I cannot use very high level Val Haste. And then Dash Link with Second Wind. As you can see, I don't even have any Flesh Offering or Spirit Offering or Bone Offering, anything like that, because I would also need Desecrate. Basically, this is like a lazy minion build. You can place Doedre's effigy on the left click, and it's gonna keep automatically resummon it as you move, and then just while holding left click, you just right click to summon skeletons. And it feels so smooth, so responsive. The only issue is that I think I need more Aura AoE. Or in general AoE, because it doesn't reach enemies from that far away, but you can have free Doedre's effigy. Now for the passive skill tree, by the way, this build is not expensive to start, but it can become pretty expensive as soon as you start getting minion jewels, cluster jewels, and just in general beast jewels or normal jewels. It can become very expensive, and I did not go for a very expensive option, so you can always optimize and squeeze out more damage. So like I said, this is Occultist explosions. While leveling, I think the first thing I took was the explosion thing. I was using minions, and I had blasphemy with like temporal chain while leveling, and I was using some raging spirits while leveling, but you probably can get better results with skeletons for leveling. Void beacon also helps lowering nearby enemy cold resistance and preventing them from regenerating. From Uber Lab, I decided to take this one to be immune to chill and freeze, and also this does give tankiness as well. Nearby chilled enemies deal 10% reduced damage with hits. Enemies are gonna be chilled because of Skitterbot, so they are gonna be doing reduced damage. Alternatively, you could take Val Bastion, which would regen ES, but since I don't get hit, I don't need the regen, right? But it could also give you stun immunity. From Pantheons, I decided to take... Well, I was supposed to be upgrading this, but I just kept forgetting. But you may want to take the Soul of the Brine King to be immune to stuns. Sometimes burning grounds are annoying, so I swap to that sometimes. But most of the time, in general, most of the time, for most of my builds, I just use Brine King and the Flask Regen. And I don't really care much about Pantheons because it's so underwhelming to me. I was using this because previously I was using permanent minions that needed to move fast from pack to pack, but now I don't because I just summon skeletons. But it's still a nice thing to have. But you're probably gonna want 11 or 12 passive large cluster jewel and try to get either small passive skills have 35% increased effect, because then each minion damage node, instead of giving 10, is gonna give you free 13% increased damage. And you also want to roll minions have 3% increased attack and cast speed. That way you're gonna get a lot out of the large cluster jewel for minions. And then on the medium jewels, you want one of the curse jewel and then one of the minion life jewel. So on the curse jewel I took forbidden words, increased effect of your curses, and increased area of effect of curse aura skills. This is very important. The second one is blizzard collar. This is to increase the frostbite curse effect. Also one of the unique jewels, Fortress Covenant, just gives a lot of minion damage, and if you place it in the cluster jewel, it's not gonna have a drawback. The last line says minions take 20% increased damage. You're not gonna have that, so you're only gonna be getting positive things. There's also a similar one with the attack speed, but I didn't use that because it just didn't have life. On the medium minion life jewels, you definitely want blessed rebuff, and then the second one can be evil life from death, which I think is the most ideal, or whatever else you want. It doesn't really matter all that much, as long as you get blessed rebuff, because otherwise your minions just not gonna survive. The blessed rebuff is absolutely a must. As you can see, I didn't actually try to get curse effect because damage wise it's more efficient to get minion damage rather than curse effect, but getting curse effect will also mean that you can slow enemies down more and be tankier. And yeah, I would really recommend this build. I wish I did this build sooner. It's so satisfying to go around mapping, just be relaxed. As long as there are not too many enemies shooting from 2 screens away, a bunch of projectiles, you're gonna be fine. I started doing actually mapping, started doing tier 15s at like level 80, which is very unusual. And this is probably my strongest build this league, not like tankiness or damage wise. Well, actually damage wise probably is the strongest. But in general, it's just the most satisfying build of this league for me. That's pretty much it for this. Like I said, tomorrow podcast links are gonna be in the pinned comment below this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.